Hello everyone, myself Drashti Joshi. So as you all know that today is a Teachers Day and we are celebrating Teachers Day virtually. So first of all, happy Teachers Day to all of you. So for Teachers Day, I have selected a best novel or as a topic Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So let's start today's presentation or we can say today's lecture. So let's begin. First slide is based on points to ponder. What is science fiction? What is Gothic novel? About Mary Shelley, she is a novelist. About Frankenstein as a novel and the modern Prometheus. So first, we all have to know about what is a science fiction. So as you all know that Frankenstein is a science fiction novel, like the monster is created from science or a curiosity of a scientist, or we can say this novel is a science fiction work. So for that, what is a science fiction? Science fiction is called as a sci-fi, is a genre of speculative fiction which typically deals with imaginative and futuristic concepts such as advanced technologies, advanced science technologies, space exploration, time travel, parallel university, etc. So these are some of the topics which science fiction novel dealt. According to Isaac Asimov, science fiction can be defined as that branch of literature which deals with the reaction of human beings to challenge in science and technology. So this is an easy definition by Isaac Asimov. He was also an author. He says that science fiction can be defined in various way, or we can say a branch of literature. Another writer, Robert A. Heinlein, wrote that a handy short definition of almost all science fiction might read realistic speculation about possible future events based solidly on adequate knowledge of the real world, past and present, and on a true understanding of the nature and significance of the scientific method. So basically, science fiction is a literary branch which dealt with the space exploration or mystical things which are based on science, or we can say a scientific researcher, or also some of the realistic or based on science or another other etc. Topics which are dealt in science fiction. Next is what is Gothic literature. So in short, we can say a Gothic literature is a genre of literature. In Gothic literature, that Gothic literature is set in a dark or mystical atmosphere of the novel. So Professor John Mulan explained the origin of the Gothic explanation, explaining how the genre became one of the most popular of the late 18th century and early 19th century, and the subsequently integrate of Gothic elements into mainstream Victorian fiction. So this Mary Shelley is also Mary Shelley was belongs to Victorian age, as you all know that she was writing in Victorian age, or we can say in mid 18th century. So Gothic fiction began as a sophisticated joke. So as you know that Gothic literature dealt, or we can say acquires some themes like a dark or we can say humor or fear or horror or other elements of horror kind of theme. Okay, so about Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley was an amazing author of Victorian age. So Mary Shelley was born in 1797 and died in 1851. She was an English novelist whose works are reached all over the globe. So she is best known as the author of Frankenstein or a modern Prometheus. Shelley was a daughter of the radical philosopher William Godwin, and her mother name was Mary Wollstonecraft. She was also a feminist writer. Mary grew up with five semi-related siblings in Godwin's unconventionally but intellectual electrically household. At the age of 16, Mary eloped to Italy with the poet P.B. Shelley, Percy B.C. Shelley. So she ran away, or we can say eloped, with P.B. Shelley. So she ran away with P.B. Shelley, and after that her father stopped talking to her. So, a ghostwriting content, a stormy June 1960 inspired Frankenstein, often called the first true work of science fiction. Superficially a gothic novel influenced by the experiments of Luigi Galvani, it was concerned with the destructive nature of power when aided to wealth. Shelley was 19-year-old when she wrote the novel. So this novel was published in 1818. So as you know that she was just a 19-year-old girl who wrote Frankenstein, and Frankenstein became a famous work of science fiction novel genre literature. After P.B. Shelley's death in 1822, Mary Shelley returns to London and pursued a very successful writing career as a novelist, biographer and a travel writer. She also edited the promoted her husband's poem and other writings. She died on 1st February 1851. So this is a chart of Mary Shelley's life, or we can say a short chart. Like 1797, her mother died after 10 days of her birth. Mary's birth. July 1814, after a brief courtship, Mary eloped with Mary married to P.B. Shelley, and her father disowned her. After 1815, her first daughter is born prematurely and died after 13 days. After that, in December 1816, P.B. Shelley's wife Harriet draws herself by jumping in the Serpentine in London. She is 20-year-old and pregnant. Mary Shelley writes Frankenstein in 1817 and published it in 1818. So after that, Mary's daughter Clara died at the age of 1. So Mary Shelley gave so many births to a child, but from that children only one survived. So her another daughter also died, and her first daughter also died after 13 days. So after that, her son William dies of malaria. The third child died because of malaria. She is childless for 5 hateful months. Till P.D. Shelley flourished, her only surviving child is born. So after 1819, she gave a birth to another child, and that child survived. August 1827, Dr. John Polydrel, fellow guest at the Villa Diodati, kills himself at London at the age of 25. And after that, in July 1822, P.B. Shelley died. And in July 1822, Mary nearly dies after a serious miscarriage, but she survived. So this is the chart of this was a chart of Mary Shelley's life, how she married and how her life was full of trauma, or we can say how he gave a birth to a child and her miscarriage was there, but only one child survived. So let's move further and talk about her famous work, Frankenstein. So Frankenstein's some of the key facts are here. Like full title of Frankenstein is Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. So the Modern Prometheus is the subtitle of novel. Author, as you all know, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. Type of work is a novel. Genre gothic science fiction. Language is originally written in English. Time and place written Switzerland in 1816 and London 1816 and 1817. Date of first publication is January 1, 1818. Publisher, here you can see Leckington and Hughes are the publisher of Frankenstein. So this is another chart, or we can say another poster of how Frankenstein came into a mind of Mary Shelley, or how he came up with the idea that I should write Frankenstein. So here is the story behind Frankenstein. In 1860, Mary Shelley visited Lord Byron's villa at the Lake Geneva with her lover P.B. Shelley and her half-sister. Byron's Dr. John Polidori is also there. Or there are some other guests are also there in Lord Byron's villa. So they were doing, we can say, some chit chat there. The terrible weather keeps everyone indoors. So as you can see in the picture, like this is a picture of villa, and all writers or all guests are in the one villa. And there was stormy weather outdoor, so everyone was in indoor. Byron reads the scary German stories and suggests that everyone write a ghost story. So they came up with new idea, like everyone should write a ghost story. And Byron was a very famous writer, as you all know that. So he came up with idea that everyone should write a story, or we can say a ghost story. So from that idea, Mary came up with Frankenstein. So Mary can't think of a story giving a mortifying negative and each morning. However, one evening, a conversation about the origin of life sparks her imagination. A few days later, Mary has a waking dream in which she sees the pale student of unhallowed arts kneeling beside the things he had put together. Byron writes a fragment based on vampire myths he had heard in Eastern Europe. It is arguable that the first story to show the vampire disguised as an ordinary member of society. From this fragment, John Polidori creates the vampire in 1890. The foundation of all later vampire fiction. Byron himself is the model for the vampire Lord Ruthven. So after that incident of villa, Mary Shelley came up with novel Frankenstein. She published that novel in 1818, and another writer, John Polidori, created the vampire, which he published in 1819. So here is one thing, like both the vampire archetype and Frankenstein's monster are created in the same week, and modern Gothic literature is born. So this is the story behind Frankenstein. Now let's talk about Frankenstein. Frankenstein is a 4 stories, an allegory, a fable, an epistolary novel, and an autobiography. A chaos of literary fertility that left its very young author at a pains to explain her hideous prophecy. In the introduction, she wrote, for a revised edition in 1831, she took up the humiliating question, how I, then a young girl, came to think of and to delight upon so very hideous an idea, and made up a story in which she virtually erased herself as an author, insisting that the story had come to her in a dream. So this statement is accepted by Mary Shelley, that this story can come to her dream. She also said that I saw the pale student of unhallowed art kneeling beside the things he had put together. So this is the statement, like the pale student is a Victor Frankenstein, who is one of the character, we can say a protagonist of the Frankenstein novel. So, and kneeling beside the thing he had put together, and that writing it consisting of making only a transcript of that dream. So this novel is a transcript of that Mary Shelley's brain. Okay, so this is the character chart of the novel Frankenstein. Victor Frankenstein. So let's start with the protagonist, Victor Frankenstein. So Victor Frankenstein is the protagonist of the novel Frankenstein, and after that he creates a monster, or we can say his creation, which is monster. And from that we can say another character is Elizabeth Levenza, who is the wife of Victor Frankenstein, and his sibling is a William Frankenstein, and another man, Henry Cleveland. So this man is a best friend of Victor Frankenstein. So these three characters, Henry, Elizabeth, and William Frankenstein, three of them are murdered by monster. And after that, story begins with the Robert Walton. So this Victor Frankenstein telling the story to Robert Walton. He was a shipman, and he write this whole story in a letter to her sister Margaret Sevilla. So then she received the letters and detailed story of Frankenstein. So this novel is described by two point of view. First point of view of Victor Frankenstein, and another story's point of view is monster, or we can say a Frankenstein's monsters story. So both of them are hero of them stories. And this Da Lacy family, there are some minor character as well. So this family is a blind father's family, and Frankenstein, or this monster, goes after this Victor Frankenstein abandoned after making his creation monster. He abandoned this monster, and this monster goes to this family. So these are some characters of Frankenstein novel. Okay, let's start with this plot of the story. So a story, or we can say a novel, began with Victor Frankenstein. Victor Frankenstein is found chasing a monster at the North Pole. He meets Captain Walton, who is on the scientific expedition. Victor tells him his life story. So as I also told you earlier that there are two point of views in one novel. One from Victor Frankenstein, and another point of view of the monster, which is created by Victor Frankenstein. Frankenstein discovered the secret of bringing things to life. So Victor Frankenstein, or we can say Dr. Frankenstein, he discovered the secret of bringing things to life. He used a body part from a graveyard and assembled a creature who came to life. So in a curiosity, he started collecting body parts from graveyard of another bodies, or we can say he assembled this all body parts and create one creature which was very ugly and who came to life. Upon seeing his creation, he ran in fear, deserting it. This forced the monster fend for himself. So now what happened is, after creating monster, or we can say after creating this creation which is creature, he ran away in fear because that monster was very ugly, because he was stitched, and after seeing him, this monster, Victor Frankenstein ran away. The monster searched the companionship and love. He was in search of love, or we can say he was in fond of love. However, due to his hideous nature, he only found rejection. Like, he was very ugly, as he was very ugly in a person, and because of that, he only found rejection. Bitter and hurt. Now, monster is hurt. The monster searched for his creator to get revenge. So, monster doesn't know about this Victor Frankenstein, that he created him. And after that, in searching for this creator, he found out that Dr. Frankenstein is my creator. And because of that, he was very hurt and he wants to take a revenge. And in that revenge, monster kills 3% of Victor Frankenstein's life. Like who Victor Frankenstein loved the most, creature killed, or we can say murdered them, 3 of them. One was Victor Frankenstein's brother, Another one is wife of Victor Frankenstein, Elizabeth, and another person is Victor Frankenstein's best friend. And after that, monster forced Frankenstein. That monster forced Frankenstein to make a bride, or we can say another creature, a lady creature for him as a bride. But Victor Frankenstein break the promise, and he does not create this creature because mistakes happens only once. And after that, out of revenge, Frankenstein follows the monster north. So he follows the monster in the North Pole. It is here that he runs into the Walton, the Captain Walton, and after that, and his expedition, after telling the crew this unbelievable story, he dies. Who dies? Victor Frankenstein. After telling the whole story of his life, he dies. The monster comes to pay his last respect and tells Walton that he intended on killing himself by setting himself on a fire. So in the end, both died, the creature and the creator. In the end, Walton turns his expedition back, partially due to the story's moral. So moral of the story is some scientific advancements are not worth the cost. So there are major concern, or we can say most of the important question is that who is the monster? One, Victor Frankenstein, another, the monster. Who is actually monster? So this is a question from me. If you find out answer, then you can let me know in the comment section. Okay, let's move further. Another point is the myth of Prometheus and connection with Frankenstein. As you all know that Mary Shelley gave a subtitle to his own, to her novel Frankenstein. Subtitle is Modern Prometheus. So first question came into our mind is what is the myth of Prometheus. So this is the myth of Prometheus. Prometheus was a titan god who stole fire from the Olympic god and gave it to human. For this act, he was doomed to spend eternity chained to a rock with an eagle eating out his liver, which would regrow daily in an eternal cycle of torture. The Prometheus, who was the Greek mythological god, he gave fire to human, and he stolen that fire from gods, or we can say Zeus' heart. Prometheus symbolized for intelligence and genius, human striving for scientific knowledge. So this second point is related to our novel Frankenstein. Human striving for scientific knowledge, like Dr. Frankenstein was striving for this life, giving a life to another creature. So that was also a scientific experiment. Another symbolizes Prometheus is courage and bravery, championing humanities. So these are some symbols of Prometheus, or we can say a myth of Prometheus. So here is some explanation how Mary Shelley connect that Greek mythology with his modern novel in Victorian age. It might seem like a stretch of the imagination to come an ancient Greek tale to theft and torture to a 19th century Gothic horror masterpiece like Prometheus' Sacred Fire. Victor Frankenstein's science gives human what once had belonged only to the gods, immortality. So Prometheus scared fire, and he scared fire from God. And in the novel, Victor Frankenstein also gave a life to a human, or we can say a life to a creature which is belong to the god. Immortality is also belong to a god, so he doesn't have this power, or we can say he doesn't have that thing that he can give life to another creature, we can say another human. But writer Mary Shelley draws the connection herself with she wrote her tale of science gone too far. She subtitled her novel The Modern Prometheus, inviting reader to make the connection between the the ancient Titan and the modern mad scientist. So both are connected. The Titan Prometheus, who had always taken pity on mortals, saved mankind by giving fire back to them. He stolen the fire from Zeus' heart in act of both theft and defense. Dr. Victor Frankenstein, however, received a much more psychological torture. The creature, as Shelley called Frankenstein's monster, horrified its creator. Dr. Frankenstein abandoned the reanimated monster, convinced his experiments had created a creature of pure evil. So, as I also told you that the creator, Dr. Frankenstein, he abandoned his own creature. We can say his own creation, like he abandoned his own baby. So, because of that, Victor Frankenstein was connected with Prometheus. Both are same in Mary Shelley's imagination. So these are the explanation. This is the explanation of Frankenstein from me, and these are some works cited. I hope you enjoyed this explanation of Frankenstein novel from my side. So now if you are watching until the end, I want to request everyone that please go check the description box. There I have put some links. Links are of quiz. So quiz contains only 10 questions which are based on Frankenstein novel, and after giving a quiz you will receive a beautiful e-certificate, and another links are like my blog link, and also if you want to read this whole presentation, then I will also provide you my SlideShare link. Then there you can go and you can read whole presentation. Thank you so much for listening until the end.